The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to the rousing rendition of K4Wins, K4Wins.com. I am Tony Kurre, been doing sports radio and classic rock stuff like 40-something years. I certainly lost my load of cash to my different types of bookies throughout my entire life. I think my first time, I think, did you guys all remember the first time you made a wager, a case? Keefer, of course, executive director, editor of the Las Vegas Sun. How old were you when you made your first bet?
I can remember one in 6th grade that I lost. So I guess that would be it.
All right, Kai Gregory.
I was in. Go ahead.
No, Kip, go ahead. No, chime in, baby. You're jumping in.
My first bet, I was 17. I was at a bar in Buckhead in Atlanta called Harrison's with my friend Mark Random. The Saints were beating the Raiders at halftime, like 31-7. We got to talking to some guy. He said, I'll tell you what, guys, how much money you got? And we had $50 or something. He says, I'll bet you $50 the Raiders win this game outright. We go, this guy's an idiot. We'll do it. Stabler brings them back. Final score 38-37. Raiders win. So yeah, I did not have a very good first experience.
At least it sounds like you made a good bet. I remember mine was, and this is why I probably never bet with my heart anymore. Maybe I learned early because I totally Shield fan was. Mine was the Braves and the Yankees were playing in the World Series, and I remember betting.
Oh man!
I think it was the year the Yankees swept them.
He is executive director of Birmingham Racecourse and Casino right here in Birmingham, Alabama, Kip Keefer. And then the bottom left-hand corner, Kai Gregory. He's been doing handicapping forever. That's why he's part of the show, I should call it K4Wins, but it's K4Wins.
Yeah,
that's how long he's been doing this thing. First time you had a bet, Kai?
1996.
Oh, shit. He remembers.
A newcomer.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, really?
19, what year was it? I don't remember. I don't remember. Anyway, got taken to the Tennessee-Alabama game by my girlfriend and bet that Tennessee would win. She had Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee won.
What was the payoff, though?
It was really good.
I was going to say there was no cash.
Doing money.
That's what they came up with. Winter chicken dinner is what they did right now. I was 1979, 13 years of age, and I bet this guy named Jeff Blackwell in the Lakota marching band that I wouldn't eat a worm on stage.
What was the line on that?
Well, for me, it was minus 100 because I would have done at that time. Unlike now, I'll do anything for a laugh. Unlike now, I certainly take people's feelings into account before I would trample on someone to get a laugh out of them. But back in the day, I would go to any cause to make someone laugh for sure. Something that's not laughing here. Breaking news before we get into the show. We're doing the show on August 15th on K4Wins.com. Go to our website, K4Wins.com, and check out all of our plays. Today we're getting into coaches who can win games for teams and coaches who actually lose games for teams in college and professionals. The NCAA imposing a significant fine reportedly exceeding $20 million to Michigan, stemming from the loss of postseason football revenue in the next 2 seasons, comes part of the sanctions following an investigation of alleged sign-stealing scheme involving former Wolverine staffer Connor Stations. According to ESPN, Jim Harbaugh, who served as head coach at the time, will also receive a show cause for 10 years. He, of course, now with the Chargers. Stations is a 8-year show cause, according to Ross Dellinger. I called him Stations. It's Stallions, by the way. Penalties for coach Sharon Moore included additional suspension for the first game of the 2026 season, already having self-imposed 2-game suspension, according to the report. Any thoughts on that, guys? And, of course, there was a reason why Jim Harbaugh got out. We all thought, he's done this. He's won his national title. Now it's time to go. Did he want to stay at Michigan, a Michigan guy? Sure, but there was a reason why he split. I think we all knew that. Case?
Well, he had to go. It was a situation where, he knew how that was mounting and that was gonna explode at some point. So it was a savvy move for him to make his way to the NFL right at that moment.
Michigan fans, Case, feel any lesser of one Jim Harbaugh who just kind of left the cupboard and just said, I got you a natty, you got your national championship, now I'm on my way.
I don't think so. I think the national championship makes up for that. I also, not to totally defend Jim Harbaugh and be Mr. In his corner, but I do think he really wanted to go back to the NFL too. I mean, even the year before, he was throwing his name out there through his agent, trying to get in. I think the college football lifestyle kind of grated on him. So I do think the NFL was a draw too. I mean, why even throw another game in? I get the fine or whatever. Sharon's already sat out. It wasn't even really his mess, and they're playing New Mexico. I'm guessing.
That's so stupid. That's like a vacation.
So it's all kind of ridiculous to me. But,
the NCAA is ridiculous to start with.
They should not get to pick which game their coach is suspended. It should be, hey, you're suspended 3 games. It's the first damn 3 games of the season. If you happen to play top 25 teams, tough crap.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. That's the way it should be. I think Jim Harbaugh is actually a really good start for this show. And I'm kind of glad we had this breaking news because I would certainly put him in that realm of coaches that actually win games for teams that ain't supposed to win. For some reason, he's had it going on. He had it on with the 49ers. He did as goofy as he was. He went to Michigan and won a national title, and I didn't think he was going to be able to pull that off. And obviously, we're seeing what the Michigan Wolverine program is without him. He's one of those guys where I think he adds 2 or 3 wins to his season. As goofy as you want to say, I think he goes into the Chargers, and I think he's an ultimate success, and I think he has everything to do with winning some football games. Let's start with guys in the National Football League, and we'll start with Case, who actually win games for their teams. Despite the fact they may have some teams that just ain't really put together well, these coaches are so good. Maybe a Mike Tomlin. I'm not going to throw any more coaches out because I don't want to step onto your list. But give me some coaches in the National Football League that win games for their teams, Case.
Yeah, Tomlin's a good one that you mentioned. I guess I have to throw him in begrudgingly because lately I've been against the Steelers every year. He still finds a way to win. But
by the way, I think this year may be one of his most interesting coaching years he's ever had. I'm not sure he was into the Russell Wilson thing. He seems to be more of a guy. He's not a college coach, but I think he's one of those guys who would rather have his own guy in to learn his system and to mold him into who a Tomlin kind of guy is, as opposed to an Aaron Rodgers coming at the age of 45, who, he's really not going to have any say about when or how he throws the football.
Yeah, I mean, if he does it again this year, I might just have to stop betting against Steelers season longs. I have to totally put myself on probation. Although I said that last year, they did it, and I'm right back to the well. I'm on under 8.5. I like all the other teams. I don't like the Browns, but I love the Bengals and the Ravens. So I don't see a good year coming. A big thing for him is I actually think that the Russell thing, especially at first, I think, well, the thing I'll give him big credit for is he was clearly not a Justin Fields guy, and neither am I. I mean, I don't understand why some of these guys get 4 and 5 chances. Like, Fields seems like a great kid, good leader, obviously electric runner, but just could not throw the ball. I'm hearing now buzz on the Jets. They're saying, the Jets are going to be more competitive than you think. I've heard a lot of people throw out Aaron Glenn for Coach of the Year. And I can be wrong about anything. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but I've seen it too much with Justin Fields. The guy cannot throw the football. I'm super down on the Jets this year. And Tomlin still won some games with him. Somehow did worked his magic before Russell Wilson came back. So Tomlin's on the list. Honestly, the first guy that came to my mind, and it's weird right now because I think they have the best personnel in the NFL to go with it. But it'd be tough for me picking between the Harbaugh brothers now. I think what John Harbaugh's done over 20 years almost now with the Ravens. I mean, every single year they're great. Even years where they didn't have the personnel advantages they have right now. So he's certainly high on my list. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's hard. I hate just mentioning the obvious guys over and over, but I think you have to start the conversation with Harbaugh, with Andy Reid. Trying to think if there's anyone else that lifts a ceiling to that extent. I mean, I think McVay to a point for sure. I mean, the Rams after the Super Bowl, they lost all these veterans. If most other teams were in the situation McVay and this front office were in, I feel like there would be like a 2 or 3 year bottoming out period. But they were right back in the playoffs, right back battling. I mean, almost beat the Super Bowl champions last year. Stafford still hasn't practiced. Hopefully you listen to the show because I think before everyone was talking about this, I was saying bet under on Rams, bet against the Rams because I think there's something really to this Stafford thing. It certainly played out. So I guess he falls in the Tomlin bucket where if he does it again this year, we're really going to have to bow down to him. So it looks like there's real jeopardy of Matthew Stafford not playing at all this year. Now he's got to make it work with Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a shell of himself that he was with San Francisco. So Tomlin and McVay certainly on the list and certainly have challenges ahead of them this year.
Would you put Pete Carroll in there?
All the Raiders fans call me haters and don't love it. I've been very impressed with being around Pete Carroll. I think he's professional, runs a good program. I will say I didn't love the end of his Seattle tenure. I think he gets too much credit for how good they were at the beginning. He kind of needs to prove it to me this year. I do think a situation like the Raiders, I think he's definitely going to make them better, but he's saying stuff like, I win 10 games in this league every year. That's just what I do. Well, if you really look at the numbers, he hasn't won 10 games in the league since I think the last 3 years in Seattle, they were like one game over.
He ran 10 games total the last 3 years.
And nothing against him. He's a Hall of Famer. He's unbelievable, but he's 74 years old in September. He's going to be the oldest coach in NFL history. I just need to see it before I officially sign off on him still being that guy at this age.
Damn, he looks good for 74. He's still a good-looking dude, man, for 74. I mean, still chewing that gum, still getting after it. Kip, give me some of your NFL coaches who actually win games for their teams.
I don't know. Case hit most of the main ones. I don't think the list is that long. I'm interested to hear what Case says because he's been kind of back in the headlines. I always was a big John Gruden guy. Case was around that, and the fact that he's still out of football is kind of disturbing. I guess it comes down to lawsuits and pending decisions and such. But I always thought. I always think there's a lot of good X's and O's guys, but it's those real good motivators that maybe have that little extra something. And so I'd be interested to hear if Case agrees with me or thinks that's ridiculous for me to mention Gruden.
Gruden, I mean, there's just so many things coaches have to do. X's and O's wise, I think Gruden is still really strong, above average. Motivationally, I think the guys buy into what he does. I think the problem was, and this is no secret, you talk to anyone in the NFL, anyone with the Raiders, and even the end of Tampa, he was just a terrible personnel guy, and these teams gave him way too much leash on that. He basically was calling the shots there, and he just is not good at identifying talent. He needs to be the guy that's coaching them and not picking them. It seems like we're going to get another data point because I don't think it was a coincidence that this week when all the lawsuits going out that he put out the SEC quote that he's dying to coach at a SEC school. I've heard his name linked to Arkansas maybe if it doesn't work out this year with Pittman. So I really, talking to some players that played for him, not this year, but the last couple of years, and more of them were still around, they were adamant that they thought he would get another chance and he wanted another chance. So I wouldn't close the book on his career yet. I think we're going to get another data point, and shockingly, it might come in college football starting next year.
No, yeah, listen, guys have kept their jobs for a lot worse than what he did. I'm just like, I don't know. Someone was out to get his ass. And I mean, listen, he went from just.
His name was Roger Goodell.
Yeah, he was he's a superstar. I mean, you're talking about a $20 million guy with ESPN, too. I mean, the guy was just, he had the look and he just, I think the sport was better with him. He was fun to watch. And I hated to see him go, but hopefully he'll be back.
Well, he actually, this just last 2 weeks has toured 4 different SEC campuses to kind of get this ball rolling. The Case was talking about. I've heard him linked if Billy Napier struggles again at Florida, there's a big bunch of the boosters in Gatorland that are really coveting John Gruden. So that's another school that you might want to keep an eye on.
Cowboys, Bears, Patriots, Jags, Raiders, Jets, Saints all have new coaches this year, Kai. We can't really go with guys who are new coaches unless, of course, they've been in the league before. Some NFL coaches that actually win games for their teams. Who you got?
Well, real quickly, I will add, as a Tennessee fan, every time we've had a coaching hire come about in the last 15 years, the very first name has been Gruden.
Yes.
And it's never happened. And I was one of the ones saying it's not happening, it's not happening. His wife was a cheerleader at Tennessee, yada, yada, yada. So that would tell me, although, he's Tampa Bay and some things down there being around Florida, if he was to go to Florida, he would probably become one of the most hated men in Tennessee lore after not being coaching in Tennessee and going to Florida. I have heard him in Arkansas. I just don't think he would live in the podunk town or state of Arkansas.
Fayetteville.
It's funny because, here I get a stir in the pot. I totally disagree. I think Jim Harbaugh is a freaking idiot.
Yeah.
I love his brother. I think he is one of the best. I'm not going to call Andy Reid because he's got Mahomes and all that. I think John is great. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to lose more games for the Chargers over the next 5 years than he wins.
Why? Why do you think that? Just because he's an idiot? Because he likes to drink milk with his steak?
I don't
I mean,
respect him at all. I don't like anything
he's
about
been
him.
a winner he's been a winner everywhere he's gone. I mean, listen, you can say whatever you want. But if you're going to sit there and say you think he's going to be a lousy coach in the next 5 years, I'd like to know why.
Okay, well, because I said so. That's why.
I know it sounds like I'm probably playing every side because I was with you. I'm a Harbaugh guy based on what he's done in the past. I certainly think you got to put him up in that tier. I am, however, anti-Chargers this year, and I don't really love their future. And a big thing though isn't just Harbaugh, but it's another one of those boxes I'm talking about. Coach, I don't love the guys he's surrounded himself with at the Chargers. I mean, Greg Roman as OC. Like, look at the Ravens offense. He had that amazing year where Lamar won his first MVP, and then it just got so stagnant. I mean, they're running like an early 2000s offense. You have Justin Herbert, who I know has become a polarizing force, but I think in the right system, Herbert could be incredible, like top 3 NFL quarterback. I just don't think, Greg Roman with his big boy, let's get these giant offensive linemen and pound it into the line. I just don't think that's the way football should be played anymore. He basically got run out of the NFL anywhere else, and Harbaugh's just so loyal that he stuck to him. So I am against the Chargers a little bit this year, but I guess where I disagree with Kai is I think it's kind of terrifying going against a Jim Harbaugh. But I am, if I had to buy or sell Harbaugh stock right now, Jim Harbaugh, I'd be slightly on the sell, but I can't, knock anything he's done so far.
And a lot of it probably goes back to my hatred for the Big Ten and how Harbaugh was while he was at Michigan. I didn't like him at Stanford either.
Yeah, he was hard to like.
Go around in the NFL, so that's probably some of it. But y'all, so that's a lot of it. Y'all talked. So he would be my third one that I thought would lose. But winning number one would be John, without a doubt. And then there's another one that he may not make the best in-game calls, but I am a huge fan of Miko Ryans. I love what he does with the team, his defense, the schemes. I know that he is allegedly a really great coaches or players coach. I really like that. I'm really high on his team simply because of that. And then I've always said Mike Tomlin. I've always been a Mike Tomlin fan. I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to be his downfall this year. I love Pitt under 8.5. I really think the only way they get close to 8.5 is if they beat Cleveland both times they play. The only way they get is probably 7 or 8 wins, and that keeps Cleveland under 5.5. And that's two of my favorite unders. And then coaches that I just don't understand, just to go ahead and give the negatives also besides Harbaugh. I don't like Mike McDaniel in Miami. I think he's a putz at number one. And then the other one that I think is going to lose some games is Brian Schottenheimer at Dallas. What has he ever done besides be Marty Schottenheimer's son? What has he ever done to be able to get that job? I don't care about his coordinating jobs and all that. Absolutely, just one of the dumbest hires I think I've ever seen. And I think Dallas stays under 7.5 also.
The coaches I think that are going to winners. I'm surprised that we didn't hear more of the guys at the top echelons, the Kevin O'Connells, who I think has done a fantastic job in Minnesota and really a team that a lot of people won't seem like to want to fire. Kyle Shanahan, I think, has done a fantastic job with the 49ers. I still don't understand that quarterback situation up there, and they continue to win football games in and out. Dan Quinn, who was not a guy I'm not a fan of with the Atlanta Falcons. I got a chance to go over there and work for a little bit when he was the head coach. People hated him. But he's done really, really well. Dan Campbell, I think, has won a lot of football games for the Detroit Lions that normally they wouldn't just because of his demeanor and who he is and what he stands for, a blue-collar guy. And with that being said, I think he's going to have a really special year this year. Sean Payton is another one of those guys. Don't like his demeanor, don't like him. I was married to a Rams girl, so we hated New Orleans Saints. I hated seeing the Saints going in. I hated going down to see the Saints. He rolled it up. Obviously, he had a fantastic season. Smirky guy with Warner and the entire crew, but he seems to be coming back and doing really well. The Denver Broncos, I was kind of praying they were going to have just a really bad year, and certainly Mike Tomlin. You mentioned some of those coaches you didn't like. Kip, give me some of your coaches in the National Football League you think actually lose games.
Yeah, I think college coaches are more apt to outright lose games. The NFL is a little bit more of a well-oiled machine, but I've said on this show a couple times the hiring of Raheem Morris in Atlanta was absolutely absurd. This guy has no stock to be a head coach in the NFL based on his previous stint at Tampa. I just think that's terrible. One thought I had when you mentioned Dan Quinn, if that Super Bowl goes differently, they're ahead of the Patriots by a big margin. Case, that was the first Super Bowl he covered. If the Falcons end up winning that Super Bowl and beating the legendary Patriots, I mean, it can come down to one game sometimes. What's your your stock and your legacy is. I mean, how is the world different for Dan Quinn if the Falcons end up holding on and winning that Super Bowl?
Hey, man, great
Well,
point.
also, you're going to think about Pete Carroll forever for having first and goal at the 1 and throwing the stupid ball and giving the Patriots another championship.
Yeah.
There's so much of that.
Case, your thoughts on Dan Quinn? That's right. I mean, it came down to one game. I mean, period. Let's say it.
Yeah, that's why people say I'm harsh on Pete Carroll, and I mean, I kind of am. I get it, but his NFL career, I mean, you look at how good Seattle was those 3 years. I know you won a Super Bowl, you got to the ultimate mountaintop, but they honestly should have won more than one Super Bowl. And beyond just that play, I mean, there was another year they lost in the playoffs. That team was so good, they should have won 2 Super Bowls. So I honestly think you can make an argument they underachieved in Seattle, even in the heyday, which people don't like to hear. But I do believe that. A lot of these new coaches, including Dan Quinn, I still consider him new because his first year. And while I was extremely impressed by him last year, I don't think he got enough credit last year because he really adapted, did things different. I'm always – I don't need to open this whole can of worms. I know some of us will disagree with this, but I'm an aggressive guy. Like if I was a coach, I'd barely ever be punting. I don't believe in kicking. I don't believe in numbers support, how conservative a lot of these guys are. And Dan Quinn turned his hat backwards last year and said, we are gambling all the time. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to go for it. I loved it. However, I just want a longer sample size on some of these first and second year guys. Even D'Amico Ryans, who was unbelievable the first year, I agree with Kai. Last year, kind of a step back, even on defense, which is his MO. So I kind of have an incomplete on some of these guys. I want to see it for another year. And I'm going to completely contradict myself, those. When you say coaches that lose games, the first one that came to mind just off of a 1-year sample, the guy that I think directly lost his team games last year would be Brian Callahan. I just thought he was in over his head in Tennessee. I feel like it looks even worse in hindsight that they got rid of Mike Vrabel, who scoured the NFL rule book, would find these little rule inefficiencies that he could take advantage of. And Callahan, meanwhile, is blowing, doesn't know how to manage the clock, blowing the ends of games, continually. I know Will Levis, he was kind of up against it with him, but he really talked up Will Levis. He was supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, and you didn't see any of that happen. So again, it's an incomplete. We'll see what he does in year 2. But I think if you're just looking at last year's NFL, I feel like Callahan lost more games for his team than anyone. But that could end up being a positive if Cam Ward pans out, because you got the number 1 pick for it. And I think that's the quickest way to turn around an NFL franchise if you hit on a quarterback. So maybe all the suffering was worth it last year.
I do think
my heart as a Tennessee fan seeing Vrabel. I know he was a Patriot, but I loved him as our coach, just like what you said. I just couldn't, and I would agree he wins games. I just couldn't say it because now he's a Patriot, and I can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, he's bought himself about 5 or 6 years to figure that program out, too. I mean, because they lost 71 guys on their team last year, so he's all over the place. You brought up Mike McDaniel. Some people love him and some people hate him. If you don't like Jim Harbaugh, you don't like Jim McDaniel or Mike McDaniel. I certainly get that. He is a little flaky. He's a little different. I think he's great for the National Football League just because he's great for a soundbite. I'm not going to say that he loses football games, but I will say that I think it's Zach Taylor and my Cincinnati Bengals loses games if they perhaps win. They've got an offense that's unbelievable. He's made he plays so conservative. He is anti-case is what he is. He is so conservative towards the end of ball games, and about half the time it works out, amazingly enough. I can't tell you how many times he's at a third a goal or second a goal, can't get it in, ends up kicking the ball when they're up by 1 with a minute and a half left, knowing they've lost 5 games in the last 2 years in the last possession of a game. He can't do that. He's for some reason, I'd say Zach Taylor. I'd also go on and say Brian Daboll, who I thought was great at Alabama. I think he's a super nice guy. I think he's a great guy to have a beer with. I can't believe that he's still the Giants coach. He must have pictures of somebody because somehow, some way, he's still the head coach there. Talk about losing games that perhaps he should not have lost. And then Matt LaFleur is another one of those smarky-looking guys where he's just never been on the same page with his quarterback. I know that he's done pretty well there. I know a lot of people think Green Bay is going to have a breakout year again this year, and he certainly is their head coach. Matt LaFleur is one of those guys. I think he's probably lost some games that perhaps he shouldn't have. Any other guys you guys want to throw out before we get to college?
I think we've covered most of the coaches in the league here.
Since we're on the topic,
with Case in college, I'm ready for it. Especially after Case's last comment, he is going to hate my 3 coaches that I think lose games.
All right, well, let's start right there. Kyle, let's start right there. Yeah, go ahead.
Number 1, Lane Kiffin.
Hold on, Case, go ahead.
Just for some actionable info, since we're talking about the NFL coaches, I was going to give my Coach of the Year portfolio right now.
Oh, good.
I don't think we discussed any of these guys basically, but I took Liam Cohen at 14-1. This is not really a handicap on him being a great coach. I just think the AFC South is terrible. I like the Jaguars to win it. If you win a division, you have a really good chance to win Coach of the Year. It would be a huge turnaround. So he's my favorite one at 14-1. Nice. I did take some against my better judgment. As you could hear, I probably wasn't the highest on the guy. I did take some Pete Carroll at 18-1. It's another turnaround thing. I mean, if the Raiders go to the playoffs this year off of a 4-win season, everyone loves the guy. I feel like sentiment is going to be in his corner. And then finally, I don't know if this guy really fits the Coach of the Year parameters. Usually I'm looking at these turnaround type coaches, but I think Kip and I are going to be agreeing on this team because he said something positive about them a couple weeks ago, and I didn't chime in, but I'm really high on the Cardinals this year. Yeah. And I thought Jonathan Gannon, it's kind of gone over people's heads because they were so bad on paper the last 2 years. They've overachieved each of the last 2 years. If they do that again, overachieving this year would mean getting to the playoffs, challenging for the division. I think it's possible now with the Rams situation. And the 49ers, who are here in town for a joint practice with the Raiders, they're just a matched unit right now. They got like 20 guys hurt already. So I think the door is open for the Cardinals as well. I took Jonathan Gannon at 20-1. So I went with Cohen, Carroll, and Gannon as my NFL coaches of the year.
Yeah, and Gannon's a guy. I if you would have put me on the spot for $1 million and say who's the coach of the Arizona Cardinals, the off season, I wouldn't have come up with that. So, but yeah, I think that's an interesting pick because I am high on the Cardinals and even the Carolina Panthers to have turnaround seasons this year.
All right, Kai, go for it, brother. College coaches you think are lousy and lose games to their teams?
Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin. How many times last year did he not kick a field goal where if he had just kicked the damn field goal, they could have won the game? I can think of a guy. I can't remember who it was last year.
The Kentucky game was the worst example.
Like 4 field goal attempts, and they lost the game by 2. I'm like, kick the damn field goal at the 26-yard line instead of going for it on 4th and 6.
I feel like all the times he does those are all the plays that he wanted to call on Alabama and Nick Saban wouldn't let him do, and now he's getting it out of his system. But he's getting it all done over the course of 2 or 3. I mean, the guy's won double-digit games 3 times with Ole Miss. That's pretty good, right?
But you're right. Won more games, in my opinion. Yeah. Every year he's been there, he has screwed up and cost his team with some just moronic 4th down calls and going for a 4th down. I think there were 2 times last year inside his own 20 that he didn't even get it. I think one time he did. I don't care. If you go for it inside your own 20, you're an idiot.
Yeah, and let me chime in on that because I think Kiffin is that kind of unusual guy that can both win games and lose them because I think some of the wrinkles he puts into his game plans are things that other teams aren't prepared for, and he has been successful. But I got to tell you guys, I really think that Ole Miss team last year was a major contender for the national championship. The defense they assembled, Jackson Dart playing at the top of his game. Trey Harris was a fantastic wide receiver and a huge weapon, but they lost 3 games last year that they should not have lost. The Kentucky game at home was absolutely shameful. You cannot lose to them at home. And then to go on the road, they led LSU that whole game. They were clearly the better team. They had a total meltdown in the 4th quarter when Kiffin actually put a little bit of a governor on Dart, and they gave up the ball a couple times. LSU got a couple scores to go ahead, and then Dart, as he later did in the Florida game, as promising a talent as Jackson Dart was, twice in the LSU game and in the Florida game with the ball in the last minute with a chance to win or tie the games, Dart, instead of just taking what the defense was giving him, kept trying to throw deep and threw 2 game-ending picks in those games. And, all that's got to come back to Lane Kiffin. So I think he's the rarest of situations. He can win you games and he can certainly lose them.
Kai, go ahead.
I'm pretty in between on Kiffin, actually. I know Kai was saying that I'd probably be like defending his honor. I'm probably a little bit more on the positive side. I will say schematically, I like a lot of the calls that Kai didn't like, but there's a different, one thing is everyone, when they make these arguments, acts like field goal percentages are 100%. It's not just 3 points every time you send the field goal unit out. That is a huge misconception, but I do think there's a huge thing. I loved Kiffin early in Ole Miss when he was going for all these 4th downs, doing crazy things, and everyone was hating on him. There's a huge difference when you're an underdog and you have the worst team. You need to be going for every little edge you can, taking every little gamble. Like when people were hating on him for the aggressive calls at Alabama, like he's not dumb. He knew Alabama had the better players that year. He needs to turn this into a gamble to roll the dice a little bit. However, and I don't remember the specifics of like the Kentucky and Florida games last year, when you're clearly the better team, when you have the more talent, that's when it's okay to be a little bit more conservative. And I do think maybe he hasn't known when to dial it down and when to dial it up, in my opinion. Still, overall, I like the direction of most of his on-field decisions. Where I can't quite get there with Kiffin, I don't necessarily, and I hate this word because everyone in football uses it, but I don't think he's necessarily the culture guy. Like, can you just really see him being like, the Kirby Smart or the, I don't know.
He was at USC. He was at USC. He was more of a USC kind of guy. I mean,
exactly. So I'm mostly positive on Kiffin, but he's never going to be like the top of my top 10 coaches. He's definitely not going to be my bottom 10 coaches, but I think he's an interesting case study.
There's no
He's
doubt.
more of a beach kind of guy. That's why when he left Tennessee to go to USC, Tennessee fans were all up in arms. I'm like, man, the guy's going home. Yes, he's quadrupling his money, but with taxes probably just doubling it. But he's going home to the beach where he wants to be. And yes, I love Knoxville. And no, I would never live in California. There's not enough money to put me in that liberal ass state. But I mean, you go out there to be at the beach and for that. So totally get why he would go. This one may shock some people. And for my Tennessee brethren that are watching, and I know I'm going SEC again, the next one's Josh Heupel. He does not make adjustments at halftime. He has had leads in the first half. He's done great things at the half. And I can count 10 games probably in the last 2 years where if he had just made an adjustment at halftime, Tennessee either would have won much larger or they would have had a chance to win. They do not make offensive adjustments. He has since he came to Tennessee, the scoring is going down. It's not just because Hendon Hooker isn't there or any of the other things. It's because he has not made the adjustments, in my opinion, in his game. It has always been a run-first offense, and people that don't know Heupel or haven't seen it don't know that it's a run-first offense. It's going to be a run-first offense this year with Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis in the backfield. But Josh Heupel loses games because he does not make adjustments at halftime.
Anybody else, Guy, before we move on?
Yeah, Hugh Freeze.
That's why I was asking. I was waiting for it. I was like, where are you at, man?
But it's important to note it's not Hugh Freeze's fault that he's on that list.
No.
Well, but I loved for Lane Kiffin. He is great for to talk and all these different things. His social media yesterday that when Hugh came out and said they had 3 coaches calling the offense, Lane tweeted, he goes, he's doing first down, he's doing second down, he's doing third down. Who's the 4th coach calling 4th down? It was beautiful.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin gets points for his social media presence for sure. He's hilarious.
That's for sure.
Yeah, no
I love the one this year. The day the news broke that Carson Beck signed for $4 million with Miami, Kiffin was on a podcast and told that information. He says, "Did anybody see his game against us?" He says, and they're giving him $4 million. That's unbelievable.
No, he's great. I mean, he's super good on, and he's certainly taking some shots at his old bosses too. Case, give me some coaches that are losing in college football that shouldn't.
Ooh, losing that shouldn't. That's a tough one. So I was enjoying listening to you guys so much. I didn't have
We go on the horn. Kip, we'll start with you. We'll go to Kip first, and you can certainly comment on what we got. Kip,
well, my first name probably is going to be associated with my hatred of this university, but I think Ryan Day is a subpar coach. I don't think Ryan Day is getting all these accolades. I think he had Knowles and he had Chip Kelly. I think if you look at the Michigan game last year and how they played, I think that was a blueprint of Ryan Day's previous couple of years at Ohio State. Case made a good point before about having the better team. They always have the better team. People talk about he's 80-11 or whatever his record is, but that's against 3 absolute cupcakes every single year. If he's been there 7 or 8 years, that's 20 of his wins. And as my partner on radio, Terry Quillian, points out, half the games in the Big Ten, although they're conference games, are cupcake games. In really big spots, I think he's had the best team sometimes and not won. And I think the coordinators last year kind of put him over the top. I just don't think Ryan Day, from a personality standpoint or an approach, is an elite coach.
But so you do understand that bringing on great coordinators, Nick Saban, that's part of being a great coach.
Yeah, and when Saban started to have less than, gigantic seasons in the last couple of years, it's because, in my opinion, he settled for some coordinators that he should never have had employed. When Saban was bringing in the Sarkisians and the Lane Kiffins, that was the era of his coaching tenure at Alabama where he was just unstoppable.
Yeah.
But he had Tommy Reese being the offensive coordinator. That's not a recipe for success. Although Tommy Reese now, unbelievably, is the offensive coordinator with the Cleveland Browns. I don't know how that works, but anyway.
You seen the Cleveland Browns is a perfect fit. It's a perfect fit. They're going to go down to
a complete malfunction situation. So I'll put Ryan Day on my list, and a lot of people probably think that's controversial. I do not think he's a great coach.
Who else you got?
I can't get on board with that one. Just real quick, as I said, I'd respond. I mean, the Michigan game, absolutely. I completely agree with Kip. I think I've said it. That was just completely baffling. But I really think that was a one-off. Kip will probably remember, like when I was in high school, my freshman year, we were like a 1-2 playoff game, and our coaches implemented this ridiculous system where like we're they're like our rival. We're just gonna pound the ball and beat them. That's what Ryan Day got in his head, that he wanted to show how strong they were. And I've never seen that any other time in his tenure. You look at the other games he lost.
Remember the pissing match with Lou Holtz, who's like 115 years old?
Yeah,
and Holtz said Ohio State.
He's emotional. I can understand, but if you look at their other losses, I mean, they lose like 43-42, 31-30.
Yeah, that was the Georgia score.
I feel like that was kind of a one-off. I think Day's done a pretty good job there, but I do think he's up against it this year without those coordinators. And not to get too off topic, but I'm just all the reports from camp are that the Kearholes or whatever the kid's name is playing better than Sayin. I don't think he's going to start, but there's been reliable reporting that he's probably going to get some series in this this game against Texas, which the market clearly didn't like. Once we started hearing that, some more money came in on Texas. So there's a lot of flags this year. They do have probably the two best players in the nation, and Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. So it's nice to be able to start with that. But this will be a big year for Jason Day. I might have to revisit this in a year.
Alabama's defense made there.
Yeah,
lost on my mind, Jason Day. Sorry.
And Ryan's certainly one of those guys. He's hard to like. Just the beard's enough to turn me off. And obviously, I'm not an Ohio State kid. My brother and sister went to school there, so I have to hear about it every single year. And good for him. And to lose to Michigan 4 times in a row and still win a national championship is something to be said. Who else you got, Kip? You got any other coaches you want to throw out there?
I mean, you guys know how much my grand affection for this guy is, but I am so sick. And maybe this is going to be the last year we have to endure Mark Stoops. I don't understand everybody who says, and he's done a fabulous job at Kentucky. I told you the other day, his SEC record is 28-63. He has not done a fabulous job at Kentucky. He's had 110-win season. I think that he's the dean of SEC coaches. He's been there 13 years. And yes, admittedly, you don't have a lot to work with. Kentucky has no football tradition, but he has not been a groundbreaking guy to go in there and turn that around. It's a team that never has any innovation. They occasionally get a couple of good pieces, but I'm so done with Mark Stoops. I think people think it's Bob Stoops and they get confused, but a guy that's got a winning percentage of about 25% in a conference over a long period of time, I just think he's a dumpster fire.
No, he's living off that 2021 season. You're right, when they won 10 games. He's a 7-win coach, and at Kentucky, that's enough. You've got Kentucky basketball, and that's what they care about. And having lived there, that's all they care about is Kentucky basketball. As long as Kentucky basketball ain't losing 10 games a season, they don't give a shit about their football team. If they're winning 7 games, hallelujah, that's great. And he does that 7-6, 7-6, 7-6, 8-5, 7-6, 7-6, 5-7, 5-7. I mean, that's what he does. He's the Tommy Tuberville of Kentucky, minus about 2 or 3 different games. I'm going to throw out a couple. Luke Fickell, obviously, is right there at the top. That should be a really interesting ball game at Wisconsin. I've got to go, and my son's like, "You're not going to say Trent Dilfer, are you?" Oh, hell yeah, I'm going to say Trent Dilfer. First of all, Trent was supposed to be on our TV show, the starting lineup, and was too busy to do our show. So we got Mark Ingram, who's the UAB athletic director. He wasn't too busy. The AD wasn't too busy to come join the show.
And he's a great guest. He is Trent, really knowledgeable.
Yeah. And he'll join us on the show tomorrow morning from 10:30, 11 o'clock on ABC 3340, and also on our YouTube channel. Trent will tell you right now that he went by the book. I mean, he's got the actual book his first 2 years at UAB. And for some reason, I don't know why, he's like, wait a minute, it says I should be going for it 4th and 13 from my own 35, and he'd do it. And I'm like,
yeah, who wrote that book?
Yeah, that's a coach that's not obviously, that's a coach that doesn't know his players and doesn't know his talent level. And obviously, with a guy with a name like Kit, should have a big quarterback. That program, Zeno obviously was not the quarterback we all thought. He got banged up the entire season. Anyway, this is 3rd season. That being said, I do think he's got a chance to turn it around. If he gets 6 games this year and goes to a bowl game, he has solidified himself in UAB football lore as a guy who got him to a bowl game, which is going to be good. They've only had 2 losing seasons since 2017, and both those, by the way, are Trent Dilfer. So I don't know. It may just because, he's a high school coach. He just came from high school. So I'm not one to, I don't want to shit on the guy. I do think he's going to be
Tony, we looked at, and you said about winning the 6 games. We looked at his schedule this week, and they've got Army and Navy, they've got Tennessee, they've got Memphis. They play South Florida, who's going to be a pretty good team. I don't see 6 wins on that schedule.
No, well, they got Alabama State right off the top. They're going to game by game.
Yeah, that'll be a winner.
They got to look at this season like an alcoholic, one day at a time, because they cannot afford to look ahead.
I think it's going to come down to the monumental showdown with Rice of whether or not they have a chance to win 6 games.
Since I'm talking about some of my Cincinnati brethren, Scotty Satterfield, I think, has done a lousy job with the Bearcats. It's a program that was undefeated several years ago. They have totally fallen off the face of the earth. Cincinnati's there. Sam Pittman, I think, is great for Arkansas because I think he's a perfect fit. He looks like he lives in Arkansas. He looks like he still doesn't have cable or running water. I think he's a perfect fit for Arkansas. And I know everyone loves Sam because he's Sam, doesn't shave, looks like a child molester, but he's got to go. He's not a good football coach. Hugh Freeze, certainly that guy. I'm rooting for Hugh Freeze to do well at Auburn. All you got to do is win 7 games, and I think that's going to be enough for the brethren of Auburn, which is pathetic. It's pathetic that the Auburn Tiger fan nation just wants to get to a bowl game this year. That's really pathetic. 3 games. He's still rolling off the fact that he beat Nick Saban in back-to-back seasons. And I'm going to go with Lincoln Riley at USC. Lincoln Riley, USC reminds me of this really smoking hot chick that dudes just get tired of. For some reason, Sarkisian didn't work there. Kiffin didn't work there. They've been through so many decent coaches, and for some reason, no one can ever show their wares at USC. I don't know if Lincoln Riley is a good coach. I don't know if he's going to be a good coach if he goes anywhere else, but for some reason, sometimes you have to look at the common denominator, and it's the chick. Everyone's like, dude, why are you breaking up with her? She's smoking hot. Look at her. It's the old saying where you see the naked chick walking down the beach. She's beautiful, and it says at the bottom somewhere some guy's tired of putting up with her shit. That reminds me of what USC is right now. I think USC may be that program that, quite frankly, just doesn't give them the resources. Maybe it's because you're in a bigger market. But for whatever reason, USC will never be the USC that it was under Pete Carroll. But several of the coaches that I think actually lose games for some of their teams. Anything else you want to add before we get into some coaches? Go ahead, Case.
We missed the headliner, and you guys all had some good answers. I agree with you. But there's one coach that in the last 3 years has cost his team more games. Decision-making on the field, worst in the nation, hands down. And I know people are sick of talking about this. Their fans say this is a lazy take, but it's so true. It's Mario Cristobal. I mean, he cost them 2 games last year. He has no idea what he's doing with his timeouts, no idea strategically. He gets unbelievable rosters year after year. I mean, not to open this whole can of worms again to argue about it, but I think on paper, I think Miami's by far the most talented team in the ACC. If you're just looking at what players they have, the talent index, it's Miami, and then it's everyone else. But it's just so hard to trust this guy. I mean, he cost them 2 games last year. That field goal at the end of the Syracuse game was just horrendous. If they win that, they're still going to the playoffs. So I think Cristobal's got to be number 1.
Very good.
Well, yeah, against Tech, they didn't run the clock out. Is it 2 years ago or 3?
2 years ago. Yeah, the Georgia Tech game.
Yeah. And last year they got clobbered by Tech in Atlanta for no reason. Tony, we had JK, a.k.a. Bama Hater, on the television show recently. He's a controversial caller on the Fine Bone, but he's a huge Miami fan. He absolutely despises his head coach, Mario Cristobal.
He does. That should tell you a lot about he's been following a program since 1992 and still loves Jay Barker for it, which is quite amazing. Let's get to some coaches that are winners, that win games perhaps for their teams. Maybe this is going to be a little more important than it is in the National Football League where everyone's getting paid, but they're getting paid in college ball too. So, yeah, Kip, I'm going to start with you. Give me some coaches in college football that win games for their teams.
Well, I mean, the obvious one, and Kai might get sick to his stomach when I say it, is Kirby Smart, because I just think you talked about a culture guy. Kirby Smart is the University of Georgia. This is a guy who shows up when the baseball coach is unavailable and walks recruits for baseball around campus. This guy's at every basketball game. He just identifies so much with that university, going back there and really willing that team to win a couple of national championships after doing an unbelievable job of building rosters. But as we can see with a lot of other guys, you can get elite talent, but I think if you don't put Kirby on the list of coaches that can make a difference in winning and losing games. Now, I thought probably the low point of his Georgia career was the Notre Dame game last year in the Sugar Bowl, where Georgia had the better team. They were dominant on both fronts, and I thought the coaching plan was really bad there. They tried to make Gunnar Stockton be Carson Beck instead of they had 4.5 weeks and didn't put anything in. So I think Kirby, for the first time in his Georgia tenure, is kind of under the microscope a little bit this year to see how he bounces back, because I thought that team last year was good enough to go a lot further than the opening game against Notre Dame. But they could have won an ugly kind of defensive game, 13-10. They gave Notre Dame 2 touchdowns in a 41-second span on a ridiculous decision to try to throw from deep in their territory late in the first half, which resulted in a blindside sack. And then, of course, the kickoff return to start the second half. So I just think, Kirby's a guy that's got to be on that list right off the bat. And I definitely think he is a coach that manufactures victory. So I'll start with him and listen to what you guys got.
Kyle, you got some coaches that win games for their teams.
This is a culture thing also, and it's I mentioned it last week, and it's a guy that I think if he was at a bigger program would probably have a national championship and would win all kinds of titles. But Kyle Whittingham at Utah, I think just with the culture, with everything he does there, and then the other one, I'm just with 2, I would go, but I need more. I need more time to look at it, and again, I think it's a culture thing and what he's building, and that's Brent Key at Georgia Tech.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people are on him too. Yeah, absolutely. And Kip, a little surprised that you didn't come with Jeff Brom as one of your top 3 coaches.
Well, yeah. But he does. He won games at Purdue, and nobody else has in recent years done that. Case declared them the worst team in the power conferences last year, and I think that was a slam dunk. I do like Jeff Brom a lot. I think being back at his alma mater, Louisville was underappreciated. I'm actually surprised, and I guess they were a little banged up, but when Louisville had a chance a couple of years ago against Florida State, that the crippled Florida State team that ended up gutting out a win against them, that loss kind of surprised me. But Brom came right back last year and had a really strong year with Louisville and won a big game on the road at Clemson and just did a lot of good things. So he's definitely a coach that can raise the level, and he's still kind of a new kid on the block. So I think he's a good one to reach out and grab. As far as anybody else, nobody's just jumping to my mind now. I will say that I'm kind of agreed with Tim Brando when he was on our show 2 weeks ago. He mentioned Matt Campbell at Iowa State, and he said something that kind of resonated with me, because I kind of went, yeah, well, he's right. When he said Campbell gets more out of less than any coach in the country, and I know Case might have some thoughts on that, but I keep thinking back, they played an Iowa team that looked better than them on paper last year and found a way to beat them. So maybe the Campbell assertion is a good one. And we'll see this year, their talent level looks like it's fallen off a little bit from the team that was pretty competitive last year, but they'll have a national stage, although it's not in this nation. It's in Ireland next weekend when they play Kansas State in the very first game that anybody's going to be paying attention to in college football. So I'll throw him in there in respect to our buddy Tim Brando.
College football kicking off a week from tomorrow as we do the show here on the 15th. You mentioned Kyle Whittingham. I want to go with Kenny Dillingham from Arizona State. I think is having specialized. I don't think they would have won nearly as many games had he not been the head coach last season. Rhett Lashley, I think, is doing a fantastic job at SMU. We talked about perhaps his name getting on a short list for other schools. It'd be kind of interesting to see if Rhett Lashley would even be invited to go back to the Auburn Tigers situation if, in fact, that opens up. You mentioned Jeff Brom. I'd have to put him in there. Jeff Traylor from UTSA is one of my top 3 coaches. I think he's interesting. What I think is interesting are some coaches, and I've got 2 coaches here that I can't tell if they're going to win games for their team or actually lose games for their team. And that's Bill Belichick. I could certainly see, just based on having Bill Belichick in your locker room, that's going to bring some players in, much like Deion Sanders did with Colorado. Don't tell me that Colorado didn't win more games because Deion Sanders wasn't in the locker room. And then James Franklin, who we all want to poo-poo on. We all want to say is lousy, can't win the big ball game, but consistent-wise, he's always just one game off at Penn State. He brings a winning attitude. He's won everywhere he's gone. I know he hasn't won the big game. This could be the season that perhaps he knocks off Michigan or Ohio State and ends up winning a national championship Penn State the first time since Joe Pa did it. But some of those coaches that, quite frankly, I can't tell if they're going to win or they'll lose. Case, what's your thoughts?
Oh, man, so many thoughts on this topic. Where to begin? It's hard for me to go with these super big coaches as adding wins. I know I'm going to contradict myself because I just kind of defended Ryan Day, but I kind of group Ryan Day and Kirby Smart together. Like, all credit to them. They waited for the right job. They were in the right spot at the right place. But, all we ever heard for years was that Georgia was this like death force waiting to be ignited. They had everything in place. It just going to take Kirby Smart waited. He got the right job. Ryan Day waited. Ohio State's turned into what they do. But, if it's another coach and not Day and Smart, are those 2 programs worse? I think so. But are they way worse? I don't know. I mean, are Day and Smart in the same place if they had to go the route that a lot of these guys did and have to coach at Wyoming or Vanderbilt or James Franklin? I don't necessarily know that they do that great there. So I'm positive on both of those guys. I think you got to put them above average coaches. But as far as like coaxing wins out of places, adding wins, I don't know. To me, I kind of look at the bottom of college football and in that regard, and so you did well. And immediately jumps to mind, probably the 2 programs I've covered have been around the most, or 2 of the worst programs historically in college football, Kansas and UNLV.
Cleveland and Leopold, yeah.
Stock's kind of down on Leopold now. Like, did you forget, like, this team almost went 10 years without winning a conference game. He had them, like, nationally relevant 9-3, I think, one year. Jalen Daniels getting Heisman buzz. I think Leopold is incredible. He would be up there. And I think what Odom did at UNLV, I mean, UNLV hadn't won a bowl game in 25 years. They hadn't had back-to-back winning seasons since 1980. He came in and they won 19 games in 2 years. They're like one of the best group of 5 programs in the nation. I also think he did a really good job at Missouri the year he kind of developed them. They had that one really good year. They crashed back down to earth the next year, but that's just having unrealistic expectations for a program that's in the SEC is going to be in the lower end of resources. You got to have those ebbs and flows. So I actually think really highly of Odom. I'm still kind of baffled that he took the Purdue jobs. I think it's going to be so difficult there, but if anyone can do it, maybe it's him. I'm just trying to think of some of these other lower tier jobs. I think maybe we've talked about Tulane a few times on the show, which I'm not high on Tulane this year, at least compared to other people. It sounds like I'm a Tim Brando hater based on everything you guys say. He brings up, I kind of disagree with. I'm not though. I respect him, but I think Tulane was like one of the worst programs in the nation until Willie Fritz took over. They beat USC in the Orange Bowl or whatever that was. They won the AAC.
Yeah.
I think Houston is on the up too. I think they're going to be a force in the Big 12, if not this year, then the next 2 or 3 years. So I think Willie Fritz is a guy that comes to mind. So when I'm looking at coaches that add wins, I start digging from the bottom. I like to look at these programs that were terrible and had someone kind of pull them up. Smart and Day and those guys, they get their just due, but we can't ignore the fact that they stepped into the ultimate perfect situations where the majority of the coaching people in the nation do not.
Go ahead.
We got to throw Clark Lee in too, because talk about inheriting a god-awful program. And what Clark Lee did last year, flying to New Mexico right after the season, and not only coming back with Diego Pavia, who he watched go into Auburn and just dismantle them at Jordan-Hare, but he came back with 4 other of their best players and their head coach as his offensive coordinator. That's the kind of out-of-the-box thinking. So I think Clark Lee has to get a major check mark as a guy who is winning games at a program that is really not capable of doing it unless you got somebody who is willing to kind of turn the page and think a little innovatively. Because Clark Lee will tell you himself, after his first 2 years there, he realized what a bad situation he had gotten himself in. So I got to give Clark Lee some honorable mention because what he accomplished last year at Vanderbilt was something that I didn't think I'd see in my lifetime.
No, amen to that. K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. Check out our site. We're hitting about 68%. Jays, Tigers, Astros, Phillies, Milwaukee, 12 in a row. Good night. Someone told me today, like, is this for real? Is it for real? And I said, well, was it for real when the Reds won 12 games last year? I mean, it happens. I'm not saying Milwaukee's not, okay? But
no, I told you guys the other day after watching that team, I get it now.
Yeah, I get it now too.
I was befuddled.
Yes.
I said, how is this team with this lineup winning all these games? I mean, they absolutely, more than any major league team I've seen in the last 8 or 10 years, they play the game the right way. Christian Yelich is their superstar. Yep. He's hitting slow grounders to the right side to move runners up. I mean, you don't see that in this era of baseball. The Brewers are a threat. I mean, I'm telling you what, they are mowing over everybody they play.
Best team in baseball, 76-44. They are getting it done. San Diego's also leading the division. Cubs, Dodgers, Mets, Mariners, Red Sox, Yankees, all the wild card. My Cincinnati Reds are 1.5 game out from making the playoffs. Around the horn real quick.
And the Cubs are fading too.
They've had the worst record since the All-Star break. Terry Francona, does he get the Cincinnati Reds the playoffs case? Yes or no? Just go around the horn real quick.
Oh man, that's really putting me on the spot. I'm gonna say yes with how bad some of these other teams look right now. It's close, but the Reds are on the ascent, so I'll say yes for you.
Kip, yes or no? Reds
I think they're going to get in. And the Mets, I've just watched that series. What a mess they are. They
lost to the Braves, for God's sakes.
Got 2 out of 3. They had a 6-0 lead night before. Let's give up 9 runs in the 4th inning. Their best pitcher walked 5 guys. Peterson. They have no pitching. What is with the New York franchises who have all these multi-million-dollar offensive juggernaut players, and they don't have anybody on those staffs that can pitch? It's just unbelievable.
They've had 10 games where they've led by 3 or more runs since the All-Star break and lost. 10 games. That's almost impossible. 3 runs is a pretty good chunk of change in Major League Baseball.
You talk about a top-heavy lineup. Once you get past the number 4 hitter, the 5 through 9 aspect of the Mets lineup is absolutely laughable. Yeah, so
the Soto trend is not looking really good right now.
What a mess.
Kai, tell us our record in Major League Baseball then. Let's go around the horn and give me some Major League Baseball news that you always give us.
Oh, I know. I hate that we're out of time because we're 8-3 the last 3 days on K4 with on baseball, and that's what's going on right now. We're hot, and this is an incredible weekend coming up with baseball. Some great matchups. We were 0-1 yesterday. We had Detroit on the run line. They won the game, but only won 4-3. And we are 683, 351, and 4 year to date. You've got some great series prices this weekend, including Milwaukee is minus 55 versus your Cincinnati Reds, and they are today, and minus 30 on the series, and they haven't even announced the pitcher for today. So that's going to go a long way to see what happens with Cincinnati if Milwaukee's going to stay hot. Minus 30 today, minus 55 for the series. Then you got the Cardinals getting plus 20 against the Yankees. The pitching matchups.
Cards lost back-to-back to Rockies, right? Didn't the Cards lose back-to-back nights to Rockies?
They did. They're plus 20 against the Yankees at home with some pretty good pitching matchups. And the Angels in Oakland. Oakland's minus 30 with the Angels, but all the pitching matchups favor the Angels going in.
All right, get on it, K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. I wanted to mention, too, we had 7 different changes in the National Football League head coaches. Can you guys tell me how many new head coaches we have in D1 college football this year? Case, give me a number. How many new head coaches in 2025?
21.
Kai.
I have no clue.
Kip.
There were 0 in the SEC. I'm going to say only about 14.
There were 29 new head coaches.
Wow.
Yeah, 29, which, believe it or not, is about right. The last 5 years, we've averaged 32 new coaches every single year in college football. Isn't that hard to believe? It used to be a 3-year job. You get 3 years because you had 3 years to bring your own guys in. And by the third year, if you're going to make a stick, then you get fired. Now it's 1 or 2 years and you're gone. So great stuff. We're going to do the show again next Tuesday. It is college football week next week. When we do the show next Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central Time right here on the Coastal Digital Sports Network. And, of course, TKR, Tony Curry Radio, SR 1029, thegame.com. We're going to be all over it. It's going to be a fantastic week as we get ourselves. We're all college football next Tuesday, gentlemen. 10 o'clock. We'll be ready to go. We thank you. Appreciate you on all you do. Thank you. K4Wins.com. Thanks, guys.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.